relate to tree, to the sun, to the sky, to the earth. We're all connected.
Hello, sweet souls. This is DTO. Boom. Welcome to the 5Q interview podcast, where we discuss yoga, music, and art. Thank you for tuning in. Let's everyone take a collective deep breath. Roll the shoulders, shake it out. Whew. And wherever you are, we are so grateful to have you here today. And if you're watching on the archive, thanks for being here. And this is also live streaming. So what that gives everyone the opportunity to say hello. I see Chantel. Hey, Chantel. Yes, we are here. It's ready to go. So you can comment at any time. And as always, if you want to find out what I'm up to, you can go to DTO Music on any of the socials, dtomusic.com, as well as discovering what kind of soundtrack music that I have been creating. And today, this is exactly what we're going to be speaking about. And as I said, this is live, so feel free to comment, ask a question, share. It's always welcomed. And if anything, if you don't feel like words are representative, a good old-fashioned emoji will absolutely do. It'll help us out to get more engagement, more people to see what we are creating as artists and musicians in the world. And so as you can see scrolling below, today's podcast is with Egemen Sanli, and you can see this wonderful, beautiful photo of him. And he is an improvisational yogi musician. You can see these gorgeous photos of him playing sitar, also practicing yoga. Oh, I love this photo. This has to be blown up. That's epic. So good. So cool. And so today we're going to talk about the backstory of how music is created, the process, as well as how collaboration is really my love language personally. And when you can collaborate, you can really synergize and transcend whatever skill sets or whatever ways that you show up with the instruments you play as musicians, with the art that you would draw as an artist, with the words you would write as a poem comes together and flows. Or if you're writing a script for a movie or whatever team you work on at a company or business that you run. It takes a team to build the dream. I'm sure you've heard that. And so today, when we discuss music, it's really, I feel, for many people in the 21st century, it's kind of a mystery. A lot of people will push play on whatever their favorite music streaming app is, and all of a sudden, magically, the music's there. They're like, oh, wow, I just am listening to music. Here it is. And what I'm going to invite you into today is how the process works. And so as you can see here, this is Ege's Spotify account. And, you can push that green button and you can say, oh, I'm just going to play, I'm just going to play and create. And what I welcome people into is the idea of not having it be like that. Okay, so without further ado, let me bring on the one and only Egemen Sanli. How are you, brother?
Hello, brother. Great. How are you?
The frequency was so powerful, I just blacked out for a second. You see that? My video went away. Hopefully you can still hear me.
I can see you and hear you fine.
Wonderful. Awesome. Talk about behind the scenes, the technicalities of video, audio, and really what I feel today when it comes to creation is here I am. I live in Costa Rica, in case people don't know. And you're in the Bay Area in the United States. And there are ways that we all have our origin story. I wasn't born in Costa Rica. I was born in a small town in Iowa. I know you weren't born in San Francisco. You were born across the sea in a land
That's
far,
right.
far away.
Yeah.
And so I like to say the following, like we all had to be born somewhere, and this human journey guides us and moves us and weaves us through space and time into these experiences. And so I definitely want to share this awesome photo of how you and I began our journey.
Yes.
We're kicking it right
San
off
Diego.
with some retro photos. And so the story goes that we had connected through Dana, right? Dana told me, because I was living in San Diego at the time, I, with massive gratitude, got to live in San Diego for 22 years of my life. Lived in Iowa for about 20 years of my life, and then I've traveled all over the world and other experiences, right? Latin America mainly. And Dana was like, "Oh, you don't know this amazing sitar player?" Because she was in the Bay Area. She had moved down to San Diego. I hope Dana's going to watch this. And I was like, "Okay, let's connect." And I think you jumped on a flight, or you were coming to San Diego anyway to perform, I believe, with her class, right?
Yeah.
And so I swooped you up at the airport, and then I had an awesome connection, and we just started really. We went to a farmer's market, I remember.
Yeah.
Got
And
to have
the
some,
studio right after.
yeah, right into the studio. And so that was our process. Later, we're going to ask a question about what our musical process is. Go to a farmer's market, feel the vibes of the community, have some delicious, nutritious, fresh juice, and cheers. Stay hydrated. And then it was going directly into our awesome friend, my friend Antonio Aguilera, which shout out to him. He has Global BPM Studios in San Diego, and so yeah, you got to start recording right away. And so that was powerful for us to, and here's your awesome logo. Here's your amazing instrument that you get to perform. And what we talked about is how, of course, you and I have collaborated. And on the original collaboration of this song, Wisdom, it was really powerful because it was my last album of my trilogy of albums. And I was ready to, in addition to design music for yoga, I started designing music for more like meditative breath work, ambient music after my trilogy of albums during, let's say starting like 2019, I started to do more of that. And so this song, Wisdom, that you see on the screen, a big shout out to CC Spirit. You can see her logo in the bottom right-hand corner. She designed the artwork. And as you know, and many musicians out there know that it's not only about the music, it's about either the music video, it's about the artwork, it's about the visual journey and that aspect of it, which really can enhance and guide us into a whole other multi-dimensional experience. So I really appreciate all the artists in my life that have supported all these soundtracks and soundscapes, because that's our genius, right? Is like bringing the audio in, and it's like, oh yeah, we have the visuals. And so I really am grateful for this upcoming release. And as I was sharing moments ago, is for this last album in my trilogy of albums, Radiant Energy, I chose to go along the 5 koshas. And so as you can see, the 5 layers of my body here, we have the physical body, the energetic body, the emotional body, the wisdom body, and then the bliss body. And shout out to all the collaborators, all the people that supported on this project. And so with this album, which is the one that you got to play on, the original had awesome singer, Lee Coulter, had a lot more energy, percussion. And what I recognize is, how can I really emphasize the sitar? How can I bring in the flutes and all these soundscapes? Big shout out to Tare. I was on a call with him yesterday, multi-instrumental, very talented musician like yourself. And I was like, there's this other possibility with this song, Wisdom. And so that's where I reached out to you. I know you're just moving into your place, getting your home studio set up, and all divine timing, you got to re-record. And the brand new takes were just so amazing that it really became a feature for this upcoming song. And this is coming out on the new moon, which is April 30th. So feel free to look out for that on your favorite streaming app. And of course, a lot of people are out there supporting as subscribers to my DTO licensing program, and you can get access to it right away. So, what we love as musicians is to talk about music at times because, we're all storytellers. Of course, sometimes it's less talk and more rock. And we're going to get to hear some extraordinary live sitar playing and looping and everything you're going to be doing. But with all of that said, let's begin our 5Q interview. So the drum roll here. All right. The world wants to know, brother. Here it is. Question number 1. When did you begin to love music?
Pretty much as far as I can remember. But probably more distinctly around when I was 6, 7 years old, I really got into listening to music a lot. And as a Turkish boy living in southern Turkey, I started listening to things like Beatles, Metallica, Queen, just classic rock in varying subgenres. And I was just in love with it. So it was all guitar music and drums, like your heavy metals, all that stuff really got me, like that whole scene and what it comes with it. So I really started with that kind of falling in love with rock and roll music. And that led me onto the path.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely got into Metallica. For me as a drummer, all the double bass that Lars was doing,
Yeah, of course.
it's like blew my mind. And exactly the Beatles, of course, all their songwriting, all of
I
the
mean, it's just, whatever I can get my hands on, basically. It kind of became an obsession, very quickly, just to try to find like what is out there that I need to hear. And just having not so much access, being in southern Turkey, to this kind of music, I just had to be like make copies of cassette tapes and things like that. Just always be on the lookout, who's got what, you know. Yeah. But it started with that kind of obsession for listening and hearing, and then eventually picking up an instrument came a few years after that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it's interesting because you mentioned the Beatles, because if you consider like the East and the West, and of course, this extraordinary instrument that you got to perform for Wisdom and that you play often. I know you're multi-instrumental. We can get into that in a little bit, but sitar, the first time that Westerners got access to hear the sitar in a song that was quote unquote Western music was through the Beatles, right? Because they went to India and George Harrison learned how to play the sitar, and it was transcendent, right? Like all of a sudden you have this rock and roll music, and then you have the sitar that's like, it was that fusion that probably a lot of people didn't see coming. And I believe it was Norwegian Wood, right?
Norwegian Wood, and then a couple other songs that they experimented with. But more important than those experimentations themselves is the fact that they introduced the instrument to a whole new audience that didn't have it. And with the instrument, the style of music, tradition, and knowledge that comes with it. So the classical Indian music theory is so accessible and so easy to understand. It doesn't require anybody to read notes, yet it is at the same time so deep and intricate. And I see it as a alternative to like music education, even. So like when sometimes people come to me and say, hey, I've tried to learn music all my life, it just never sticks. And we start talking about a little bit of like classical Indian theory, and it starts to stick, because the framework, the approach is different and very accessible. So what Beatles not only did was just introduce the instrument, but also the tradition and the knowledge that comes with it.
Check
Yeah.
out this amazing photo that I pulled up for us.
Yeah, there it is with Ravi
There it
Shankar.
is. Right. And that planted the seed for your ears, my ears, to really get access to Eastern mystical, divine, spiritual instruments. It just teleports you right to a whole other dimension when you hear these instruments, and then to have the fusion to bring it full circle. I feel that was such a gift. And you mentioned something earlier. I just want to make sure our listeners and viewers know when you said cassette tapes. This is what cassette tapes look like, by the way. For certain people, they have no clue what we're talking about. But yeah, back in the day, you needed these physical, rectangular, thin pieces of tape that were wrapped inside these plastic containers, and then you put them inside a player, and magically music would come through speakers. And if you lost it, then you don't have it. It's not like now if it's streaming, if you misplace your phone, you can still stream it on other devices. But if you, especially if it was a mixtape, right? So what you're sharing is like in southern Turkey where you grew up, it was like almost like an underground thing, right? People getting access to different styles of music. That was it actually played on the radio, or was it shown on TV, or did you find other ways to access that music?
Very little radio exposure, very little TV exposure. But there was also a genre of music called like Anatolian rock, which is basically like rock and roll music in Turkish. But it will be equivalent to like more 90s grungy, or more like alternative hard rock style, but more Turkish. But there's also a whole movement with like Turkish style of music applied with rock and roll, so we could get a little bit more access to that, which was also really awesome. But when it comes to for us, what is foreign music, that was a little bit rare.
That's great. So you really just enjoyed it, absorbed it, and as you know, it was kind of your origin story for when you began to love music, right? Just to get access
early on. But then high school Napster happened, and that was a whole new thing for me, because these were bands I've never heard of. This was music I've never been exposed to, so all of a sudden became accessible. And that was just kind of like Pandora's box for me, That's also amazing. So I had the pleasure of having to suffer through when I was young for that new music looking everywhere, just that rarity thing, to go into high school and just having everything all of a sudden, and just being overwhelmed by being able to have anything and everything, which is pretty cool.
And follow up to that question, what kind of music was played in your home by your parents and grandparents and family?
They did not play that much rock and roll. Probably more like classical Turkish music, more
Classical
or less.
Turkish.
Maybe some Turkish pop. Turkish pop is also pretty good, like really unique, and it's Turkey is such an interesting culture where it's it's the East-West, East meets West thing kind of happening there as well, but in its own flavor. So Turkish pop is a good example of where some of these like Turkish stylistic things, ornamentations that you find in music applied to pop music. So that's probably a lot of pop. So, I was kind of like wearing black, listening to rock, thinking I'm cool. So it's kind of my thing.
Nice. Yeah, I remember Napster. It was just like an abundance of all genres of music just dumped onto your computer. It's just like, and you had to patiently wait for it to download.
I know, one song for hours sometimes.
Yeah, that was for the global access. That was kind of like pre-streaming, as it is now with all these apps, right? This is probably what gave Steve Jobs the idea to create Apple Music and all of that. Is like, well, if people are already getting access, let's just centralize it in their hub, and then of course
If
They're
you
not
think
even in.
about it, it
Yeah.
was yet another overhaul into music distribution. Like, and like many things, technology comes first, regulation and the business follows after. So at first it was all pirating, but now it's
Mhm.
all a part of the system that we listen, and it's
Pirate for
business, right?
profit, right?
Right. No, but like our streaming service, the $9.99 you pay for Spotify if you're a premium member,
Yes,
that's how you keep it legal, but you get
exactly.
everything. So like, so then we got rid of like physical stuff. Now we're more, so music industry keeps moving through shifts and shifts, and there's always a different platform for
Yep.
music to be on.
Yeah, I love what you said around how the technology comes first, and then it's okay. Now, how do we control this, or how do we monetize it, or how do we
Right.
hopefully even it out where artists are getting paid? And I mean, that was a big controversy. You mentioned Metallica, and obviously Metallica was famous
Of course,
for
yes.
going to Congress and court and really being advocates of, hey, you're going to ruin the music industry if everyone's just downloading for free on Napster. And the irony of this, I don't know if you seen online, but Napster actually pays their musicians more than all those other streaming platforms.
Yeah, I know. I
But I
mean,
think they're
but
trying
it's,
to, trying to make up for
we're
lost
still getting there. We're not
credibility.
quite there. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. That's a whole other podcast to talk about distribution dollars and how it's compensated for musicians. But yeah, I love the backstory though of how you began to love music, and even if it's in your unconscious, subconscious, what I love is you had that Turkish classical music in your cellular matter. And then it was like, okay, that was like your foundation baseline being in the culture of South Turkey, and then finding all these other bands and groups and
Yeah,
Queen
yeah.
you mentioned, right? And just Metallica and the
List
Beatles. And
goes on. We're just
Mhm,
so grateful to have so much good music from every
mhm.
decade.
Yeah. And what comes around goes around. Like when
Right.
I hear some productions now, certain styles of like 80s synthesizers are kind of making their way back, and like
Right.
it's like what's old is new, and it's cool to see. And everything's a fusion, everything's a remix at this point as well. I
Sure.
admittedly have a few little styles of like synths or something like that they have that same sound that'll remind me of some song I really love when I grew up. I got into Van Halen a lot. And
Right.
when Eddie Van Halen started to bring like synthesizers and I was classically trained on piano, I was like, oh, he's finally making it cool. So then I got really into how then I can integrate that and blend it all together, right? So that's kind of your origin of like the first question really sets us up for understanding, where you're from, how you started to receive the music and how you became, let's say, a fan of music, a listener, maybe in a good way, like addicted to like gobbling it all up and like, oh, I want to hear more and more and more. Like, and we've all been there. I feel every musician gets those highs, right? Because those frequencies and that energy can really move us in different directions. And there's so many benefits of listening to music. And so then there's this turning point that happens for all of us that are professional musicians. And this leads us to question 2, which is what inspired you to then create your own music?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is very simple. Just order of circumstance, the order of events in my life. I happened to go to American high school in my small town in Turkey called Tars American High School. And in there was a band called Echo. And Echo band was a tradition that started in like 1969, and it was going on in this high school. So the senior year, the seniors would, whatever year they're graduating, that's their number. So Echo 69, Echo 70, Echo 71. I was Echo 03, 2003 when I'm graduating. And it's kind of like a school rock and roll band that your seniors will pick you when you're a freshman, and then that band kind of carries on. And at the end of it, in your senior year, your class funds you to make an album. So you raise some money, give it to you, and you go to the studio and record your music. When I heard about this, I was just like, what? That's impossible. Like, how can this be real? That you can actually make your own CD, you can make your own album, you can go record. So that really inspired me. So even I was before a freshman in high school, even through middle school, I was getting ready to actually enter the audition and get into the Echo band, which is why I started writing songs, because I knew eventually would have to make an album. So it was pretty straightforward for me when you had this thing to reach for, and this possibility of actually learning how to produce music was so enticing. Therefore, I started writing music.
That's awesome. How brilliant that opportunity was laid out before you on your pathway, and to have that level of support. So yeah, big shout out to those people that created that program, that opportunity,
For
because
sure, yeah.
you never know what's going to like click, and you're like, okay,
Some of the
this
Echo
is the path.
bands through the years became actually quite famous. Like, I think it was like Echo 1991 became a famous rock band called Mavi Sakal. Their Blue Beard is what the band's name means in Turkish. But like, they actually became a really successful band afterwards, and countless musicians that went on to do other things went through this program. So you kind of have this fraternity, sorority kind of thing that's happening, which is kind of passed down as well. It was really special, and it still is very special to be a part of that. And it's still alive today. So the seniors are still
generations,
putting it.
right?
Yeah, it keeps going on. And if you're successful enough to make your own album, that's kind of the thing to reach for. And sometimes they don't get to do that. And for us, that was the goal to reach for, and we always knew that was going to happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so great when you can have that foundation. And I can share with you the empowerment that someone feels when you can control the buttons and the gears and all the behind the scenes of what makes your instruments or your voice, or of course these days with Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic, how you can create electronic sounds and plugins and effects processing, and talk about like the Beatles. Of course, a lot of those effects processing tools are just physical. There's no.
They
like,
were experimenting too, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Like reverb was pretty much invented by the Beatles, and then, like it's like this big. It's all these backstories about how they created these sounds, and now it's like this little digital plugin that you just put into your digital audio workstation. But I feel like that's really great. It's almost, I consider it like a driver's ed, like teaching someone how to drive the physical vehicles. Like, how do you drive that passion for music, where then how the software operates? Because for all of us as creative souls and artists, and everyone out there, I feel, is a creative soul and artist somewhere. They may just not tap into it. It's like, how do you get those ideas, stream of consciousness and your heart and your soul? And how does that go through some software, some machinery, some technology, some code, and then come out the other side? And later you're going to play through a looper. It's just like, it can just blow people's minds with what technology.
It's all just magic.
Exactly. It's chalk it up as magic.
Just magic, if you really look at it that way. It is. But also it is not. It's this paradoxical, beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And notice how when I asked the question, it's like the inspiration, right? So of how to create. And I feel like we all are creators, right? And we all are here to create content or create experiences for our own selves. And even me living in Costa Rica, the magic when I wake up is like the birds are chirping. I can sometimes do some field recordings. I'm going to record the birds, or I'm by a river or waterfall. I'm going to record some of that, and then I'm going to just grab that little 15-second sound wave, put it as the intro to this music. And then so the fact that you can just grab all these sound waves and have it be very much like the beautiful shapes behind you, it's like puzzle pieces. You get to collect them all and place them all in different locations, and somehow they all snap into place. So it's great. And so when you say for you to create your own music, and you went through that program in Turkey, and what instruments did you start playing? So I'd love for you to expand on this, to talk about when you choose to create your own music, what was your first instrument? And then how did you expand into playing other instruments?
I started with a little mandolin. That was my first instrument. It was not a great instrument. It was cheap, but it just kind of gave me an idea to learn how to pick strings. Then I graduated to a guitar, learned a little bit of guitar, and by the time I was talking about this Echo band, I was playing electric guitar. So all through high school, I played mainly electric guitar, a little bit of drums. That's when I learned a little bit of drumming. But it wasn't until I was in college that I started really going off with experimenting and learning different instruments, what led me to getting the sitar. Of course, that was a huge moment. But also now I play all these Turkish instruments, Arabian instruments, handpans, uh, harmonium, flutes. Just the list keeps going, growing and growing. I actually recently got an Iranian santur, which is really, really fun to play. And just, yeah, um, I found out that really my talent in music came down to two things: one, improvisation; two, ability to spend time intimately with an instrument and learn it. You know,
Mm.
so that's what it came down to, just kind of learning how to improvise on an instrument. But I grew up with the guitar as my foundation, and that was super helpful with everything else to come later. Whether that's learning the sitar or any other string or any other instrument, just kind of really learning the traditional electric guitar or regular guitar helped me stay on the path, and just spend time with everything else that helped me get to where I am with this sound that I developed.
Hmm. Yeah, and earlier I'll bring up these photos again. I love how you get to play stringed instruments, wind instruments, percussive instruments, really showing off the human body and the human organism, feeling music in your fingertips, feeling it through your lungs, having that breath, feeling it through, each of those techniques that I'm not even fully aware of, but I know they're extraordinary of how you play the sitar, right? And just those drone sounds and so wild and extraordinary of how it all comes together. And I love how these images are sharing how when you're playing and you're a soundtrack for people to then practice yoga asana. Of course, there's so many different ways that music can inspire people. Here's a few other awesome photos of you playing different instruments. I love that. The pedals.
Yeah, I always have some pedals going on.
Nice. That's a great behind the scenes, because a lot of times, again, as I was mentioning when we began our interview, it's like a lot of people just push play and they're like, oh, these are sounds coming out. I'm not sure how they're made necessarily, but they sound amazing. But to know all of the technical ways that there's signal flow, right? Those signals come through pedals and different software, different ways, and even hitting the handpan and different techniques, how you can touch it and
so many ways to manipulate sound, and that's part of the fun.
It is, yeah. And then there's the raw version of it, and then all the effects that you can add to it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think this is a great lead into question number 3, which is tell us about your creative process. So now that we've established how you got into music, how you began listening to music as a child, as well as the different instruments you played, how do you put it all together? Like, what is your pathway of recording, collaborating? What is it that you do? How do you know which instrument to play when? Because a lot of times, if you have all these skill sets and talents, it's like, which one do I play and which one do you start off with? I've definitely been interested in that. And I know that for any song, you need to have some rhythm behind it, because if it's just free flow, then you can't have the drums or the tabla or some percussion instrument come in later. So like, what's your creative process? How does it all start? And it may be different for you if you're recording a project completely on your own Whereas, of course, our creative project was, I began the production and then I created and then you played on top of it. But I think it'd be great for you to share for the listeners out there, starting from nothing, what is your way of preparing through getting to record?
Countless ways. I've pretty much tried whatever common prescriptions you have for this, and now they all have their successes and failures, and it is, to me, it's just being open to the creative process itself is my creative process. It's just kind of actually dropping into whatever creative process wants to actually come out and being open to that, rather than saying, this is how I do things, ABC, this is how it works for me. I'm just open to whatever works. To me, being a musician is like 80% listening and 20% playing. So I listen to what wants to come out, whether it's just me or whether it's someone else's song that I'm contributing to, or I am with someone else creating a song from scratch. There's always favoring accident, favoring happy accidents and mistakes, and a sense of play, a sense of jamming, and openness to improvisation. I can never play the same song twice. It just doesn't work. Every time I play it, it's always different. Even if I try to play a song that I played before, it's just like really hard. So when it comes down to it, a lot of the things that I do right now is just improvisational. And that means listening, finding out what would, by adding something to this, what do I create? What do I give? What do I take away? What kind of space do I create under this texture, under this content? What's like under this context? What content am I throwing in it? Just like a paintbrush is adding and taking away something. So when I'm looking at it, that's usually where it's at. And because my background goes into classical Indian music a lot, Hindustani style, North style, improvisational based music a lot. So I can always rely on my knowledge around that to convey a certain emotion or a mood if I want to. So starting from there, then I usually have a featured instrument. It could be the sitar, it could be a guitar, it could be a handpan, could be the santur, whatever, and build everything around it. Especially with the looping, there's always sort of this groove that is out there. I'm just kind of like one step away from it. So fully opening up to that without any expectation, I'm able to just get out there and access. So oftentimes that's what it looks like, even if I'm playing by myself or with someone else. Just listen.
I love that. And that is a skill set that a lot of us sometimes forget about. So I appreciate that reminder. It's like, oh, read the room, read the space, read the vibes, read the moment of time and what is coming through. And when you listen to that spirit within, right, then that creativity starts to come through. It's like, what does your heart want to say? What is your mind thinking? What is even like on a global consciousness? What is humanity desiring? What frequency could be put out there that could really resonate? As you were sharing, like obviously Beatlemania was a real thing, it's like struck gold like lightning. It was like what combination, what alchemy, what synergy came together. Obviously like John and Paul's songwriting together, the instruments. We earlier put up that photo about the origin story of how George learned the sitar and how that came into Western music. So it's like the creative process is really also how many tools you have and the power of collaboration. And you collaborating with a looper and you collaborating with the software and all of that. So So without further ado, I can't wait to have you share some of your setup that you have with your instrument.
Okay, let's do it. I'm gonna move some things around.
Okay. Yeah. So while you're getting set up, just want to share with everyone that on April 30th, full moon, we will be launching a Sitar version of a song called Wisdom that came from my third album, Radiant Energy. And the song was repurposed as an instrumental soundscape. And it's very instrumental with hardly any percussive sounds. And we'll give you a little sneak preview of the song later. But I want to allow for this moment to shine through of the talent. And go ahead and do a sound check when you have a moment. And I'll let you flow and be in that creative moment. It's a cool part about live streaming. It's get to perform. All right. Enjoy, everyone. So everyone, send some vibes. Eggy, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Love that bass line. Love the so awesome.
Passing around. See, that's my creative process. Just do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you say do it in Turkish?
Yup.
Oh, yup.
Yup.
Yup. Love it. In Costa Rican, they say jale. Jale. Make it happen. Let's go. Jale. Or in Mexico, they say andale pues. Let's go. Love it. And so, question 4 is going to be beautiful because I did a post the other day that asked people what the benefits of music are for them. And I feel like this really is a way that leads into the conversation about what music is. Here we are, as Carl Sagan would call it, we're on this pale blue dot in the middle of the cosmos in this one particular solar system. And as these earthlings, there's so many activities that we could be doing. And you and I choose to do music. And there are people that receive the music, as we got to moments ago by your performance, and the benefits. So let's jump into this. I know I always love to include people out there on socials. This is one of the cool ways you can use social media. Asking people questions, right? So the question is, what's your favorite benefit you receive from music? Okay, so Virgil wrote life, freedom, Marty. Benefit, Kelly says, mood change, energy shift, coming alive or grounding. And anyone that just got to listen to Eggy play knows that your mood shifted. There's energy that was flowing, come alive, groundedness, especially with that dirty bass line, boom, boom, and the kick and the drums.
Yeah.
Love it. And then my friend DJ wrote connection to vibration for tuning up, right? Like, so shifting those frequencies, raising the vibrations. Touching on memories, right? If you were to listen to that band called Bluebeard, you'd probably have memories, right? It takes you back, listening to the Beatles. Or for me, I always like that association to middle school dances. At least when I was growing up, it's like first time you like dancing with someone, you put your hands on their hips. And when I was in middle school, there's this song from the movie Top Gun. It was "Take My Breath Away," and when that played, that everyone's like, "Oh, it's time to slow dance." And little geeky middle school kids were like, "Oh, I want to dance with that person. I don't know if they want to," but it's a memory, right? Every time I hear that song, it takes me right back to that moment. So Erica said it wisely, touching on memories, right? Or memories of something really exciting or happy or sad, right? Memories are memories. Jason, amazing chef out there. Release, connection, expression, movement. So these are all benefits that music has. Christopher, connection, stress reliever. I love that. So relieving of whatever stress, because music can shift that energy. So you're like, just breathe it out and shake it out. Even dancing can relieve stress in your body, right? If you're tense and you've been sitting all day in front of your computer and you just move your body and shake it out, you're like, oh yeah. Aaron, release and healing. I know that you and I hear that a lot from the style of music we create for the yoga community. A lot of people talk about how music is healing and being in touch with the heart, right? So you're really connected to different aspects of who we are, our emotional bodies. Christopher Torres, peace and good vibes. Absolutely. That's what it comes down to. Deborah's coming to our Embody Costa Rica retreat again. She was here in December. Some pura vida. So she wrote a list of benefits: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and how music is universal. You don't have to know the language it's being played in. You receive the vibe. And I'm grateful to say I've been able to work with a variety of vocalists that have at least 5 or 6 languages. I've even worked with singers that channel light languages. Connection, absolutely. Spiritual communion, Chance, awesome. Love that. I know Chance is watching live right now. Thanks for being here, brother. Sanity, yes. As George Costanza would say, serenity now. Or the father of George Costanza. Energy flow. Ooh, I love that. I actually have a song called Flow, and I have a song called Energy. That's what it's about, energy flow. Earlier, I talked about signal flow, right? Like how pedals and the effects processor that you do channel everything through that, right? Energy flow. Here's my cousin, Jennifer. I love the memories I get from certain songs. I associate a lot of special moments with music. Oh, that's beautiful. Love that. And Katie, we talked about this moments ago. Dancing, right? Joy, memories. And Mans, he's a Swedish producer, amazing a piano player. We have a track called Mumbai Moves. And he was actually one of the first international producers that I collaborated with remotely without being physically in the studio. And so we have a track out there. So yeah, getting to know you, brother. That's true. Like once you produce and create music, case in point, you and I right now, showing our first photo of when we connected, right? We get to deeply connect with one another. We got to be in the studio together, right? So that's a really powerful part about music, right? It creates those relationships. So go back to George, right? Boom, there it is.
Yeah.
That's pure connection and flow, right? Being in that experience. So I love that. Thank you. And then my mother wrote, thank you, Mom, for supporting my musical pathway. A trigger for memories, right? A spiritual connection with the universe, a lifetime of enjoyment. Absolutely. And Snappy Home Fry, we got to connect at Lucidity. Amazing musician, producer. I love this. It's a reminder of our cosmic energy bodies, boundless, formless, and all vibrational. Mm-hmm. And energy, calm. Yes. Brandy, how are you? Connection, conexión. She was a Spanish student of mine, so I need to say that in Spanish. Conexión es muy importante. Another awesome friend from my hometown in Muscatine, Iowa. Big shout out to my roots. Christy wrote, the readjustment and a rearranging of my energy. I love that, right? However you're currently feeling, you put on a particular song or an album or start to play music. If you're the one playing the instrument, and all of a sudden it can rearrange. And then Travis, big shout out. A lot of my Iowa people are out there. Centeredness and calm. So great. And Eggy, I think you know Himalaya. Have you heard of her?
The one and only.
The one and only. Absolutely. And she raps in Sanskrit on one of these tracks that we did. Big shout out to Kiyoshi. Gave her rap coaching voice lessons. So it was great. So yeah, these are the type of questions that really came to the surface. And I intentionally put that out there knowing about our interview because I really wanted to talk about the next question, which is question number 4. How do people respond to your music? So if you know that these are the benefits that people get, what are the ways that people share with you about their experience hearing you play? Or some common words, adjectives, praise that they give you?
There's definitely like variety, but a lot of things that are common are things like meditative, ecstatic, exquisite. Like there's a intentionality to the music that I make, and I think that gets picked up in the comments and the response that I get from people. And it can be anything from like inducing a memory or a mood or a sense of elation, a sense of well-being, sense of meditation, so all of those are common depending on who I'm playing with, what's the vibe, what we're kind of bringing out, but also the receivers, where are they in their life? The same song might make someone really happy, but make another person go into introspective, so whatever comment that comes to me, I always remind myself that half of that is that person's own energy synthesizing with whatever music came out, so it's this unique experience to that person that I can't really even hear myself because I'm not that person. So when I hear it, I try to remind myself that, that's that synthesization that happens when someone hears music. And this is their response,
I love that. Yeah, I'll chime in here. I'll say that for me, when I hear you play, it's transcendental. I feel very much, it's rooted, but it's also very mystical, and it takes me into this whole other realm when I hear you play. And it's like, whoa. Like I needed that. It's like getting a nice massage, but like frequency, sound healing. And obviously when you have played on the collaborations that we've done, it just allows me to even synergize, as you said, to bring it, synthesize it into a whole other way. So let's jump into our last question. Is really more philosophical. Like as I was sharing earlier, like why do we do music? Like what is it? And I had an awesome musician, Lena Bell, that had her debut album. We really dived into this, and of all the things that we could be doing, what is it about music that has, let's say, seduced us or attracted us or pulled us into the mystical possibilities of creating and playing and really providing what it is that people just responded in my social media posts, like all those benefits. Those are ways of doing it, but we can't always do things only for others, right? There's some way that we do it where it's also about our own growth and development, because we're not here to suffer either, right? So it's that whole dance of enjoyment, of bliss, and as you were talking about it earlier, sometimes you call it mistakes or like studio magic or breakdowns. You're like, oh, I have the song in my head, but it just come through, right? There's a challenge to it as well. It's like any athlete as well. And I know you used to be an athlete as well professionally, right? So it's like, how do you bring about that training, that process, and what is it about music? So what is it for you? If you were to, let's say the alien spaceship came down and be like, hey, Earthling, what's this music stuff? Why are you doing this?
No, I mean, why? First of all, like, why not? You also look at it from there's like nothing else to do. This is creation in play. Like, you can just literally see the whole universe being created in front of you as you get involved with the intimate task of making music. And whether that is just beating a drum by a fire like our ancestors did, or you're sitting in your computer putting things together, it's all the same. It's all that wanting to feed that creative desire that we all have, which is nothing but devotion to this divinity that's everywhere and everything. So why do we music? We do it in devotion to what's divine. It's the language of this divinity. It's the language of the universe. And by writing to it, by speaking to it, by writing poems to it, by making love to it, we get to experience it. So it's a great way to just drop into that. And music is not the only way, right? There could be so many different ways to approach this. But music is so accessible, so primal, and so visceral that it's so built in us that we can all tap in and go there very quickly. Yeah, that's why I do music, to go there.
You said it, brother. That's amazing. Yes. Absolutely. All the above. Yeah, that connection, right? To self, to others, to the divine, to all of it. And there's this throat chakra and my words with quote unquote earth words, we can only say so much. And sometimes you don't need the words. The music has this timeless, nameless. My debut album is called Nameless Energy, and that's really what it started from, is the power of music. It really got to me. And I even had an extraordinary moment, and my friend Nathan knows this moment clearly because he was in the studio with me. This is my debut album, Nameless Energy. I was like, music's infinite. Like, it just goes on and there's so many possibilities. It blew my mind. It's like, in this lifetime, I only have so much, we only have so much physical time in this body. This,
That's right.
like, oh. And music lives forever and ever. Like, all these artists that you love and enjoy, and this is going to be out there forever, right? Like, even if you're not here in the physical body. So we have some great comments coming in here. We have Chance, Bravo, talked about humility and listening. Our friend Sammy, awesomeness. How's it going, Don? Aloha. We got my big DTO on the flow. Have Bravo, that was awesome. Thank you, Eggy. Beautifully said. Thank you for being with us. And so in conclusion, I know a lot of people that are being introduced to you for the first time. My question to you is, where can people connect with you? What would you like people to take away from this interview?
I mean, take away inspiration. I hope this inspires you a little bit to get more intimate with whatever your relationship to music is, whether that's being a listener or being a performer or anything in between, because music is waiting for you. It's always out there. So next time you press play on somebody's Spotify, could be mine, could be DTO's, could be someone else's, think about a little bit on the process that makes it all happen, the engine that runs it, and what is it in devotion to. And I hope that comes through in my music. I try to do it as transparently as possible, and I hope that you can also hear that same devotion.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate your invitation, and if anything, I believe this conversation has created some depth into what it is that music is, and how our lifetime, knowing your origin story of music, has brought it into the present moment, where here it is right here. When people play your music, they can have this deeper understanding of what it is that they're experiencing. So I appreciate you being here. Appreciate
For having me. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Yes, absolutely. And so I know you're going to teach a yoga class. So blessings to you guiding, as well as
Thank
those
you.
people that get to receive. And I will close up by making sure that everyone knows that coming on the new moon, April 30th, 2022, if you're watching this live, you can go to dtomusic.com and you can join my subscription to get access right now, VIP, and that's Wisdom. It's an instrumental sitar version, and it's my soul brother, Egemen Sanli, that gets to have a journey weaving with the voice of the sitar. And I will conclude by playing a 90-second clip, little sneak preview. It's like the teaser trailer before the movie. So everyone can enjoy this. All right. Appreciate you, and enjoy, everyone. Blessings.